So in this tutorial, we're going to talk about using type in Illustrator. So you've used type before right here as the little type tool. And you notice that if you hold down, there's many different options to the right, and we'll talk about those in a minute. So if you just click on your screen, this is when you'll have just, you're creating point text. So you just type, 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 and it's not defined within a box. Whereas if you, when you're on the type tool, if you draw a bounding box, now here you have a predefined area where we're starting and ending your type. So that's the difference between point and area text. Now let's talk about basic text editing. If you have selected your text, you can see right here in the contextual menu on the top, you can change many different things about your text. You can change font style, size, all right here. But also, you can have even more options to edit your text via the panels. And you can get to those through the quick link right here, or you can get through Window, and you go to Type, and you can get to the panels here. So that's a couple different areas. Also, if you are on a certain sort of workspace, like I'm on typography workspace, you'll notice that a lot of these options, the character, the paragraph, panels are already open on the right. So those are some basic editing ways that you can go about. Now, when you have your text selected, you can change the color in a couple different ways. One, you can just click on one of the sort of color swatches, or you can double click on the fill right here and change the color here. So those are a couple other ways that you can do it. Also, you can work with opacity right here and change the opacity of your text. So those are when you're changing the color of your font, that's how you can do it. So if you're creating threaded text frames, so say for example you want text that goes from one text box to another, how would you do that? So what you would do is you create one box here, right, and then you would create another one right next to it. So threading text is linking text from one text box to another, and this is helpful if you have very long text. So you notice if I paste text right here and it's a lot longer than the actual text box, in the corner right here I'll get a little red square with a plus sign. And in order to thread, to link one text to another text box, you just basically click on that little red box, and you'll notice now I have a cursor and has sort of the included text. And what I do is I basically just bring it over to the other text box, and then it creates a link right here. And so now these two text boxes are linked, and if I make a change and I make this shorter, then you'll notice the text sort of gets added to this box, and they're linked like that. And in order to delink them, you just basically click right here on this little square, and it'll delink them. So that's threading text, and that's helpful if you have sort of a lot of text and say maybe a poster or something like that. You can also use InDesign, but this is if you wanted to do all your work within Illustrator. So now that I have my text and I'm ready to sort of go in and really customize it, I really want to be using the character panel. And like I said, you can open up the panel here, and depending on your workspace or in the window, and there's also a quick link right here in the contextual menu. So right here you'll see that you have a lot of options, and some of them you might not see in your panel here, and in order to get them you just go to, instead of hide options, show options, and that's where you have all your options right here. So in my character panel you'll notice I have lots of things that I can change, and this is including the actual font family, the font style, and the nice thing about changing it here versus changing it right here is, you notice here you don't actually see a preview of your fonts, but when I do it through the panel I can actually see what the different fonts look like, which I think is quite helpful. You can change the size, you can change the leading, which is the space in between the lines, you can change the kerning, the space between two characters, the tracking, the space between a line of characters, vertical scale, horizontal scale, baseline shift, character rotation, and then you have a lot of options down here, which is in your more options. And remember, you want to select your text, right? And and then when you actually want to adjust it. So here you'll notice you have all caps, small caps, superscript, subscript, and those are sort of helpful if you're doing anything with numbers like first, second, third, underline, strike through, and you can also change sort of the language. So if you wanted to say use Bulgarian. So those are the options that you have within the character panel. Within the paragraph panel, obviously, so these have to do with the options in regards to your paragraph. So you can change the alignment of a specific paragraph, left, center, right, and then a bunch of different justifying options. Then you can change the indent levels. So here you can sort of do just the left indent. This is just the right indent. This is like the first line indent and space before a paragraph, space after a paragraph. So when you're actually have more than one paragraph of text, you don't want to be using the hard returns. You don't want to be doing the double space. Instead, what you want to be doing is selecting your paragraph and going to the options and putting space after or space before a paragraph. So if I want more space, that's how I do it. I don't want to actually be having this sort of hard return. That's bad practice. So instead, you want to be controlling the space before or after the paragraph. So that's just a little sort of tip right there. So let's move on. So the last thing that I want to show you is something that's going to be really helpful for you when you're sort of creating some sort of design, and this is writing text on a path. So like I showed you before, you have a bunch of different options: vertical type tool, area type tool. So you can use vertical type tool, which is, like I said, basically you're typing downwards vertically. But say you want to type sort of on a circle. How would you do that? Well, like we've talked about paths before, basically you have a bunch of shapes here. If you make a circle, and if I'm holding down shift, it gives me a perfect circle, and I'm just going to make this no, because I'm basically only using it for my text. So if I go to here, I have my options here, and you'll notice, type on a path. That's exactly what you do. So you just click here, and it doesn't really matter where you start if you just paste. You'll notice here the plus sign again. That means you have additional text that's no longer being seen. And so in order to adjust the type on a path, so like I was saying, in order to adjust text that's on a path, basically you have to make sure you go back to your selection tool, click link V, and then you'll see there's a lot of different control handles. The one right next to the first letter is sort of the starting point of the text, and the one right here towards the end of your text is sort of the ending point. So you can choose where your text is starting and where it's ending. So I just need to sort of drag those. So I'm like, I want my text to start here, and then I want my text to end here. All right, and then you have also one sort of additional control handle right here. And if you use this one, you can switch sort of if it's on the inside or the outside of your object. So now it's on my outside, and now it's on the inside. So this is something also to play around with. And the last thing that I'm going to show you is when you actually want to have sort of a customized path that your type is going on. And this is where you would use the pen tool, and you would just have no stroke and no fill. So say I'm drawing my path, however you like it. I want it nice and curvy. Oh, it's beautiful. Now I actually select, again, my type on a path tool, and I just click right here, and I'm ready to put my text on. And this is the same thing as before. I just go back to my selection tool, and you'll see again you'll have your control panels. So you can make your text starting or ending at a specific spot, and your control handle right here, you can change if it's on the top or on the bottom. So those are other things that you should sort of play around with.